Talk Show. Recorded live.
Hello, and welcome to Castle of Horror, the show dedicated to horror movies and awesomeness. This week we take a moment to celebrate Friday the 13th with a look at Jason Lives, Friday the 13th, Part 6. Bear in mind, if you haven't seen today's movie, we're going to be talking about it from the perspective of horror fans who have. So warning, spoilers ahead. From Denver, Colorado, I'm your host, Jason Henderson, creator of the Alex Van Helsing novels. In Austin is Drew Edwards, the man who demanded that we do this movie, that we put our other retrospectives on hold and stop everything because Friday the 13th was upon us. Staff writer at horrormovies.net, writer for Rockabilly Online, creator and writer of the long-running comic Halloween Man. Say hello, Drew.
You know, I just want to state for the record that some people have a funny idea of entertainment.
And also in Austin, special guest Jamie Barr, musician, pinup model, educator, lead vocalist, and upright bassist for Austin's premier all-female rock and roll band, Danger Cakes. And you can find out about their latest shows and their album Quarter Life Crisis at www.dangercakes.net. Someone recently occupying our living room. I'm so pleased.
And our guest room, too.
Around. We're so happy.
You're part of an elite group of people that have had members of Danger Cakes crash on their living room floor.
And you're part of an elite group of people that have crashed at our house. So
Jamie Barr, hello, and welcome.
Thank you. It's glad to be home.
Yeah,
as much as I had a great time seeing y'all. It was wonderful.
And finally, also in Denver, you already heard her, as always, color commentary from attorney. I don't know when we're going to stop calling you color commentary.
No, I like it.
Color commentary from attorney Julia Guzman. Say hello.
Hello. I want to say how much I enjoyed having our in-person live podcast and visit with our podcast mates last weekend. It was so fun for Halloween. So Jamie and Drew and Tony, who's not here with us today, but thank you guys all so much for coming up here and enjoying the Halloween weekend with us.
Such a blast.
It was super amazing. It was such a magical weekend. Yes, I said magical.
We even had a guest star celebrity commentator who is Mr. Elmore that did what was all his, there was like 5 or 6 things that he's credit. I know
he was famously Leatherface in Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2.
Right.
So that was fantastic, and he joined the conversation. That was a good conversation. And actually, if you didn't hear it, that's still up at bleedingcool.com, and also you can hear it at iTunes. All right. According to Wikipedia, Friday the 13th, Part 6. It's very weird that this is actually the second Jason movie that we've done. Friday the 13th, Part 6, Jason Lives, also known as Jason Lives, Friday the 13th, Part 6, is a 1986 slasher film.
I'm glad you clarified that, because I think it was really
confusing. Just in case you're wondering, you can pick up either side of the colon and just flip them around. The 6th film of the Friday the 13th film series. The film is written and directed by Tom McLaughlin. The original concept called for Tommy Jarvis, the protagonist of Parts 4 and 5, to become the new villain. Nobody wanted that, so this one brings back Jason Voorhees as the series antagonist. And in resurrecting Jason, McLaughlin made Jason an explicitly supernatural force for the first time, so saith Wikipedia. I don't know if that's strictly speaking true. Depicting him as being raised from the dead via electricity. I won't go into all of that detail, but generally, the film was a critical success. People kind of liked this movie. It got pretty decent reviews. It did some fourth wall breaking. Some people say it was kind of a progenitor of Wes Craven and Scream. And it's whenever people are polled on what's your favorite Friday the 13th movie, this is definitely one of them. So one of the top, and most of it I can guess exactly why. So let's get our opening thoughts. Try to keep this brief so we can plow into some really interesting conversation about Friday the 13th Part 6. Drew, Jason Lives. Why are we here?
Well, as noted when we did way back when we did Freddy versus Jason, I am a nut for all things Friday the 13th. I, in fact, have a Friday the 13th tattoo. I almost wrote a Friday the 13th comic book. I have huge amounts of Friday the 13th memorabilia, so much so that some of it has to stay in storage. I love Friday the 13th. I noticed that there was a Friday the 13th coming up, So I was like, look, guys, humor me. I've been wanting to do more Jason movies. We've now had Freddy Krueger 3 times on the podcast. Freddy is amateur night compared to the Sultan of Slaughter himself, Jason Voorhees. So I wanted to get us back on this, and I was torn between doing I have 2 favorites in the franchise. I have this one and the very, very inaccurately titled Final Chapter, which of course has Corey Feldman as Tommy Jarvis. I chose this one because I think it's a little bit more of a crowd pleaser. It's got some, as you noted, self-reflective humor. It's got the Alice Cooper soundtrack. It's fun. I also just think that this is a pop icon at the height of being a pop icon. This is like the mid-'80s. This is got just about everything you would want from a Friday the 13th movie. It's the only one that has all of the elements, per se. It has Jason in a hockey mask, stalking people at Camp Crystal Lake. This is the only movie out of the entire series that has all of those. You know, you have him stalking campers, but he has a sack on his head. You have other sequels where he's out in the woods, but it's not Camp Crystal Lake. This is it. This is almost the iconic Friday the 13th movie, except it has no nudity in it, oddly. But we can get into that later. I am a big fan of this movie. I'm stoked to be talking about it. And I'm just stoked to finally be talking about more Jason, because when I was a kid, there was never a doubt who was the coolest movie monster. Freddy, Michael, Leatherface, none of them can touch Jason.
Outstanding. Okay, Julia, opening thoughts. I don't know how many Friday the 13th movies you've seen. Color commentary girl. What are your opening thoughts on Jason Lives?
I found some of it entertaining, and I didn't think it was terribly gory, so that was a good thing because I don't actually like gory movies. So I was happy not to have that. Some of it's silly, and especially I was not a fan of the comedic soundtrack that suddenly like to have the kind of the wah-wah kind of music. That part I didn't like, but I don't know. I thought it was kind of interesting. It's not super deep, or it's not going to be like winning any Oscars or anything. But it wasn't. I didn't feel like I wasted my 2 hours like I had with the movie that we'd seen immediately prior to that.
I can't believe you felt that way about that movie. Which but okay, I'll just let that lie. All right.
Interesting.
Yeah. We'll get into what that was later, because I think you'll be kind of shocked and appalled that Julia was so unimpressed. But all right, speaking of, actually, that's a terrible segue, because I don't think you're shocked and appalled by anything, particularly Jamie. How do you feel about Jason Lives?
I don't know. I liked it. This is I guess you could say the third Friday the 13th movie I've seen, and that's only if you consider, I don't know if you count Freddy versus Jason, because that was my first Freddy or Jason movie I ever saw. And then I saw the first Friday the 13th movie a couple years ago, but so this is my third encounter with Jason, and this one, is like a combination of like zombie Frank and Jason. Yeah. And I thought it was kind of a bit much. I was a little angry at that Tommy guy. I was like, man, Tommy, you're a jerk. Like, what's your deal? He's like so obsessed about Jason coming back that he digs him up, and then, now he's definitely going to be back. Yeah, I don't know. It just seems like, well, would he have not have come back if he hadn't have dug him up in the first place? I don't know. Why was he freaking out so much? Like, I guess that maybe I should go back and see the one beforehand, and, get my full of Corey Feldman. So, but
I think this character is played by 3 different characters. But yeah, okay, all right.
But I don't know. I liked it, and although, man, I had a good time just laughing and laughing and laughing at the credit song. Like, it was just so, like, I like Alice Cooper, but man, that was bad. So,
I like to use Berlioz in the film.
Yeah. I think we're definitely going to talk briefly about the music, about the score, and also the soundtrack. So what? I'm actually going to skip an opening. I'm sorry.
Oh, I was saying the song "The Man Behind the Mask."
Right. The Man Behind the Mask. It's funny. It left almost no impression on me, but everybody else notices it. So we'll definitely touch on it. Well, thank you. I got no question. No opening thoughts. I'm going to skip right over me and get back to what Jamie was just asking about, which is what the hell is going on at the beginning of this movie. There's continuity all of a sudden compared with I was under the impression that these films were quite simple and that you could go into them and kind of figure out what's going on, because there's horny teenagers who are going to work at a camp and then they start getting cut up by a giant mutant in a hockey mask. But here there's like this guy, he's driving a van, he's got visions, he wants to
he's
check
got
out
Horseshack
with him. He's got Horseshack with him. We literally do open with two dudes riding in their truck, because Tommy Jarvis, who I'm given to understand, because I don't know anything about the continuity of these films, given to understand is a guy who has been involved with the hunt for Jason Voorhees. He knows Jason's been buried, and he wants to dig him up and be sure he's dead, and I guess burn the corpse. Fine. And yes, his partner in crime is
Horseshack. From Welcome Back, Connor.
Yeah.
Welcome back, Voorhees.
Yeah.
Welcome back, welcome back.
That's a great song. Mad Magazine suggested years ago that they should do a sequel show called Welcome Back, Horseshack, and I always thought, that's actually a good idea. And, I'm sorry.
Do you want me to explain the continuity, Jason?
Yes. What the hell is going on? At the beginning of this movie, who is this person who is obsessed with Jason and becomes the lead of this film?
This is Tommy Jarvis, who is effectively Jason's arch nemesis. He was originally played as a small boy by Corey Feldman, who is a little kid who creates puppets and does monster makeup, and he's in the final chapter. And he runs across Jason, or more appropriately, Jason shows up and runs across him, and he momentarily confuses Jason by making himself up to look like the child Jason from the first movie, and hacks him into pieces with his own machete, and we're to imply that young Tommy Jarvis has kind of lost his mind. In the next movie, we flash forward. He's now a teenager. He's put in an institution. A Jason copycat killer, a Jason copycat killer named Roy goes on a rampage, and it puts Tommy over the edge. At the end of the movie, it is implied that Tommy now thinks he's Jason, and he's going to go on a rampage. So they were setting up Tommy to be the new antagonist of this film. However, nobody really liked that. Everybody is so into the character of Jason. So the producers of this film said, well, we can do whatever we want with this next movie. We can make it however we want, but we have to bring back Jason. We don't care how you do it. Just bring back Jason. Which you would think they would not be in a panic about a character whose primary attribute is his ability to get back up after being killed.
Right, but what's awesome is so thank you very much. That helps. I have to say I'm shocked that that there's that much continuity going in. Do
you really feel like once it gets going that it's that important? That's the thing. Like, it's important for the opening sequence, but once it gets going, do you really...
The opening sequence is kick-ass. I mean, this concept, these two gravediggers, whatever excuse they have for being gravediggers, are going to come across the corpse of a monster, and they're going to, fuddle around and wind up accidentally bringing this monster back to life. This is pure Universal Monsters, like it's something straight out of Frankenstein meets the Wolfman or any number of other classics like that. It's even in like a big spooky graveyard. I mean, it's fantastic. This whole opening, really the movie never is as good as the first like 10 minutes of this film.
Another reason why it would have been nice to have had Tony here is because he's actually grew up in Georgia, spent a lot of his youth in Georgia anyway, and and all this is filmed in Georgia. So
it's a good point. So I just watched Friday the 13th Part 1 like about a week ago, and to me, Friday the 13th Part 1. I don't know these movies back and forth, but F-13-1 is to me like a beautiful, almost perfect movie. I mean, it is. I love the setup. I love the slow build. I love the grainy film. I love the wet, cold look of upstate New York. And this, I'm not complaining, but this is a different universe from that. This is like eons from that, even though, in theory, it's only 6 years after they filmed the first one. But this feels...
Well, it's literally 6 years. They pumped out one of these once a year.
Wow. I mean, it is... That's astonishing. I mean, and this movie is being filmed on the back roads and the... and campgrounds of Georgia, which are gorgeous.
And in the cemetery.
But there's something, I don't know why, but this film to me has a feel that is, it feels stagier. It feels much, I don't know, I guess because there's more money being poured into it.
This actually was not that expensive of a movie. It was a big budget for a Friday the 13th movie, but it was still actually under $3 million.
So you explain this to me, because I feel like I'm poking around the edges of the thesis. I'm not sure exactly what it is. Why does the first Friday the 13th movie feel really sort of dangerous and grungy? And this one, in my mind, feels kind of approachable. Like almost like you could, it feels like an indoor movie in a way.
I'm going to interject here, Jason, and say I think that's because Kevin Bacon was in the first one.
Aha! Grunge was all about
Free the bacon.
Spurting from Kevin Bacon's collarbone. Oh,
okay, so I got to interject. I got to interject then and say that I think Tony Goldwyn should at least bring this movie up to that level, because Tony Goldwyn is the president of the United States. So there's that.
But I'm not saying I'm not saying up. I'm saying down. But down to the first one had this feel of like a genuine kind of grunginess, where it looked to me like a truly B film, like a grimy, little dangerous film where you're not sure what's going to happen.
Well, let me get into that.
Go crazy.
Okay,
please.
First of all, what you're looking at is like a late 70s, early 80s horror film versus this, which is a mid-80s horror film. And movies just look different. The fashion was different. The styles were different. The way movies were made were different.
Film stock is different, undoubtedly.
Yeah. All of these movies are B movies. Specifically the original Paramount Friday the 13th movies. From the first one to Jason Takes Manhattan, they're all B movies. I saw all of these at the drive-in when I was a kid. Not one of them did I see in a regular movie theater. So let's banish your thoughts that this is an indoor movie. Least Joe Bob Briggs appear in your office and smack you upside the head for your blasphemy.
So that's not fair to me. That's an unfair thing for me to say. All right, go ahead.
Yes. However, about this being more approachable, you are on to something, because after the failure of New Beginning, they did want to make a different type of Friday the 13th movie. They wanted to capitalize on this now huge brand. Like this is only a year after Nightmare on Elm Street. Freddy Mania had not fully taken hold yet. Jason Voorhees was still the king of horror at this point.
Right.
And so this is a pop icon. The studio and the producers really wanted to capitalize on that. They wanted to make a more approachable Friday the 13th movie. That's why it does have the elements of comedy. That is why it does have the MTV-ready soundtrack. That is why it does have this sort of weird Universal Monsters quality as opposed to the more straightforward, I would say almost EC Comics atmosphere of the original films. But
I think there's something to that.
But this is still very much a Friday the 13th movie.
So explain to me, let's talk about, and I want to hear, Jamie and Julia's thoughts on this as well. But talk to me about Jason Voorhees, this character here. This is the sixth movie. It's the fifth that Jason has been I can't even count. My point is he's not the primary killer in all of them, but he's certainly the major mark of this series. So my point is it's not tired by the time he shows up here. So what the hell is Jason Voorhees? And let's talk about his style here, how different he is from how he's appeared in the past.
Well, I think he's Frosty the Snowman, and the mask is there must have been some magic in that hockey mask they found, because whenever he gets, they dig him up and he gets hit by lightning, and then he gets the mask put on him, suddenly he comes back and he's now zombie Jason. So I'm wondering if instead of just chaining him to the bottom of the lake, if maybe Tommy had taken off his mask, if that might have
helped. It's a really
good
question.
Because it seems to be magical. But no, I mean, he is like, I think, Jamie, what'd you call him? The zombie something. You had like three different...
Zombie Franken Jason.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
Right,
yeah.
and Drew, you don't dig this guy being called a zombie. And what's that about?
To call Jason a zombie is being incredibly generous to zombies. Zombies are not nearly this badass. If you shoot Jason in the head, he's going to take that shotgun away from you and impale you with it. Okay? Like, there is no stopping this guy. He's a lot more deliberate. He can turn literally anything into a weapon. He's an idiot savant when it comes to murder.
Right.
Jason is a badass. Like, if he were to come across a horde of zombies, he would have them torn to pieces in 5 seconds flat.
I agree with you. I'd like to see Jason face some zombies. Somebody on the Facebook page suggested that maybe he was basically more like a demon spirit that periodically inhabits a physical body. Because he does seem to have, okay, I'm going to say a lot of things that are going to sound stupid to an outsider who's never really thought it was worth thinking deeply about Jason Voorhees, okay? But Jason, as we see him here, really does seem to have a great drive to kill people. And that seems to be his only real drive. I mean, he's not interested in, like, taking gravestones and, like, arranging them in a cute way or fiddling with car doors like Michael Myers does.
He didn't kill kids, though. No kids.
He doesn't kill kids. Ooh, yeah.
There's a lot of fan static about, first of all, what Jason is, how he got to be the way he is, when exactly he did start to be the way he is.
So let's review that. Back in 1958. Go ahead.
Around in 1958. Although, if you're to go off of what is said in the campfire story in Friday the 13th Part 2, he survived and saw his mother get decapitated in Friday the 13th Part 1. However, that seems to contradict the ghostly Jason popping up out of the lake at the end of Friday the 13th Part 1. So it doesn't...
So let me try and recap this as much as can make sense. Okay, 1950, we know this happened because we kind of saw it. 1958, Jason's retarded and deformed, and he is swimming, and he drowns because some kids are making out, and
which to me is why he doesn't kill kids, because he drowned as a kid, so he doesn't.
I think that's right. I think he identifies with kids. The problem is he's a homicidal maniac.
Yeah.
I mean, and so he likes to kill camp counselors. So there's probably some like inkling back there in the back of his brain that wants to punish those people. But really, he's just kind of out to like murder people. And there's even this non-diegetic noise. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, I'm just saying he kills everyone relentlessly with this movie, except the female lead. He's the only one that he kind of like I was gonna pop your head, but I'll go to this guy instead.
Well, that's only because the other guy's taunting him.
He was total skull crusher this movie.
Well, Tommy Jarvis is his nemesis. That's like Van Helsing calling out Dracula.
Yeah.
How come, Drew, is it because it's his nemesis? How come suddenly Jason is not strong when he's dealing with Tommy? Because he can break the sheriff in half backwards, which is kind of horribly disturbing.
Yeah.
But he can't defeat Tommy in the lake. That just makes no sense.
Well, I mean, within the universe of Friday the 13th, I mean, water makes him weak. It's his kryptonite. Like, he kind of goes into stasis when he's in the lake.
Oh,
and this is played with again in Freddy versus Jason. But
he's got no leverage. I mean, he's floating in the water at that point. He's so
no, but I'm talking about
Lord knows he's not a very strong swimmer. He did drown.
That's true. Jason, who is one big honking dude, is treading water.
But at one point they're just fighting. I mean, they're just like kind of on top of each
true.
other.
But I mean, at that point when Tommy is in the little dinghy and he's got a chain that he's hoping to loop around Jason's neck. Jason's attacking him, but Jason, he's not sure, there's the magical element of the water. There's also just merely the fact that he's not fighting from a good, strong base to actually be attacking a boat, like he's Jaws or something. So I totally believe that he would lose that particular fight. But this dude, Jason, in this there's a point where he attacks these two kids who are in an RV, and he manages to flip the RV over, and then when he stands up on top of it afterwards, he looks like Rambo or something. I mean, he's this extraordinarily big, physically, large, muscular guy, and he's as good at killing people as James Bond is at doing all of his spy stuff. It's just that he really doesn't want to do any. I mean, maybe I'm overthinking this. He's basically just
it's really okay. Here's my as the guy who has thought way too deeply about Jason Voorhees. Jason, first of all, it's a real world thing first. It's important to remember that the producer, unlike Freddy and Leatherface and Michael Myers, going all the way back to Dracula, unlike a lot of the other iconic horror characters, the producers of these films did not have a game plan in mind. Jason is an accidental icon. So they didn't really have, we're going to make this character, and these are going to be the rules, and these are going to be his powers, and, all of this stuff sort of kind of happened by accident and circumstance. And so the continuity between these movies is at times sketchy at best. But the one thing I will say is making him undead, or at least appear undead, is by and large window dressing, because Jason in all the previous sequels survives things that no mortal person would be able to survive. And in fact, in the final chapter, he literally gets off the slab at the morgue. Now, that could be like a Michael Myers, fake out or whatever. I mean, you can rationalize that however you want. The bottom line is, this guy is a tank. Whatever you do to him, he's going to get back up and continue murdering people. And death seems like to be, at most, a mild inconvenience. The universe wants this guy to
Why does he seem to be disabled? It's almost like he's stunned. Like somebody has has shot him with a phaser or whatever, not stun. Whenever he gets shot with the big rifle at first, but a shotgun rather. But then he falls down. He's kind of out for a minute. Then he's out. But then he's like, oh, I forgot. These don't hurt me. Never mind. And he just kind of walks right into it.
Jason's not very bright. He's really good at killing people, though. So he's, like I said, he's an idiot savant. You know, he's not. You know, he's not. He's very good at doing this one thing.
Yeah.
So,
you know,
I mean, as far as why he gets stunned, I don't know. I mean, it's just scarier to have him fall down and get back up. I'm sure that was the rationale. But as far as, and I want to get this out, as for why it's slightly different in every movie, and even the continuity and the way Jason is presented, even at times looking different from movie to movie.
His face looks different. He looks different, yeah.
I mean, he's a big, hairy, hills have eyes, mongoloid in Friday the 13th Part 2, and then he's a pink-hued Frankenstein in a hockey mask in Friday the 13th Part 3, and he has no hair. So like it changes. He changed. Yeah, and here he's an
he's a hot Marine. The guy who plays him, I was looking at the picture. He's hot. He's a good-looking guy. He's a Marine, and he's not even an actor. I mean, well, there's two different people, but for the most part, this guy is not even an actor. Yeah, and he just is this Marine, and so they were able, he just has this way of moving and kind of doing things.
And you can tell that's sort of snappy.
Well, I want to get this out, and I swear I will shut up. I swear I will shut up. The reason why Jason is different in every slightly different every movie is because he's a campfire story, and every time you tell a campfire story, it gets bigger and weirder.
So you're saying that these are tales. These are, in a sense, just like in the comics, you have Tales of the Dark Knight, and Batman's different in every telling.
Well, it's funny you mentioned Batman. This is the movie where we kind of get the fully gelled idea of what Jason is. Like, we have the development over the previous sequels. Like Superman and Batman, he is not born fully formed. You know, all these characters traits that we think of making up Jason were developed over several movies. And this is really the first movie where we get the fully formed Jason Voorhees character.
Huh. Wow, so I am really interested in this theory you have that this character is really a campfire tale, that the continuity is really just sort of hand-waving towards continuity.
Your headcanon can matter a lot. I mean, there's a lot of popular fan theories. There's a lot. The big going one is that Pamela, Jason's mom, was a witch as well as a serial murderer. In fact, the original script of this movie was going to introduce Jason's dad, Elias, and Elias Voorhees, who was going to pay off the creepy graveyard groundskeeper to cover up his son's grave, and he was going to kind of implicitly state that he knows that his son is a supernatural being. I'm glad that stuff isn't in there because I like it vague. I like being able to come up with my own stuff because if they were to say, well, this is the in-canon reason for why Jason is the way he is, I don't think I'd like it as much.
I agree with you. I think it's more fun to just sort of, because it has a more childlike notion where we go, okay, well, let's pretend that it's a little bit different. Let's pretend this. Let's pretend that. And I absolutely agree with you that in other words, I hadn't really thought about it, but I totally, completely believe your theory. So one thing I was thinking about is murder. So I really, I read a lot of books. I read a lot of like serial killer books, and actual murder happens. True murder happens. Like somebody, your girlfriend, your daughter, your husband, your wife goes to the grocery store, somehow isn't so lucky, gets shot in the head while they're at the grocery store. It sends radioactive waves through the family for decades. That's how murder works. But in these movies, this is something else. This isn't murder per se. This isn't anything. This is more like, and I mean no disrespect to Friday the 13th, but this is more like they're like cartoons or like physics problems. There's somehow you can watch these movies. Maybe I'm demented, but I think this is the purpose. You can watch these movies and people are getting killed left and right, but it has like literally no emotional resonance. And I guess that's the point of a slasher film like this, but it's strange. And I think if you let's say some hotshot came in and said, I'm going to reinvent Friday the 13th, but I'm going to give all the murders emotional resonance, I think it wouldn't work. And I think part of the campfire tale here is just the complete meaninglessness of all of these of all.
Well, literally, new characters were made for this movie just to be killed because they wanted to amp up the body count.
Yeah. I felt bad for a couple of the girls. I did.
Yeah?
There's a few of them where I was like, aw.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
you know.
They don't
And
deserve to
yeah,
be killed.
so when the dad dies, I was like, oh, really? Like, I was surprised they actually killed him off. But
Yeah, me too.
Yeah,
they
her
were just
dad's dead.
relentless. Like, everybody. Except
By the
for,
way,
you
her
know.
dad, I'm glad you brought up the dad because her dad, I was looking at him and going, so that actor, the actor who plays the sheriff, whose daughter is the fast driving girl who takes a liking to Tommy Jarvis, the arch nemesis of Jason. So that you've got this guy and girl running around together trying to solve the problem of the blob. In this case, it's Jason Voorhees. Anyway, the sheriff is, I can't remember the name of the actor, but he's only 15 years older than the woman playing his daughter, which is totally biologically plausible, but often unlikely. I mean,
But it's common in movies. I mean, plenty of movies where the person's not even that much older than the person they're playing, the parent.
I guess that's true, but it's strange that it's because at this time what you had a lot of times were actors who were way too old to play teenagers playing teenagers. She's too old. It's not that he's too old.
Right, they're all young adults, yeah.
Yeah, they're all, well.
No, they are.
Actually,
no, it's sort of the thing that they're all young adults. None of them are teenagers.
Yeah. This is. I think you brought up, this is the only Friday the 13th movie to actually have kids attending this camp. Traditionally, the murders take place, well, except for Jason, who was actually a kid at the camp, but generally in the main action of the films, the murders are taking place during the hot and horny early days of setting up the camp before the kids actually show up. And I think it's a good choice here because by having kids on this campus, you get to see Jason. First of all, it's very scary because you think, fuck emotional resonance. I actually will be a little disturbed if he comes in and cuts a whole bunch of children in two.
Yeah, no, that's pretty terrifying, especially when because the little girl who's kind of psychic, is Nancy. She's dreaming about this guy. He comes up and just studies her he's like, what are you? It's almost like he's going, what are you? I don't know. It's very interesting how he just kind of leaned into her and looked at her.
Oh, Jason is a fascinating creature. I mean, it's
so disturbing when the little girl walks in with the machete covered in blood.
Yes.
Oh
no, that's a good scare.
I like to think that was actually Carolyn from Poltergeist. No.
Oh, what a great idea! Oh my gosh!
It's like, oh, she's gone to summer camp that year.
Carol Ann.
I think Carol Ann and Jason would probably end up being friends, and then she would stick him on Reverend Kane.
Well, you raised a really good idea.
You're not gonna die now.
Well, no, think about that. Suppose you had a psychic girl like Carol Ann or
well, that's
I don't know.
New Blood. That's the sequel
So
right after.
I know, facing off against Jason, but I was thinking, and I haven't seen that movie, but it's weird to me how much of a deficit I have as far as slasher films. But imagine if you had a character like Carol Ann or somebody with some psychic power who is able to actually capture Jason and then use him to her own devices, like the idiot guys in the fedoras who think that they can make Michael Myers into like a government assassin. Imagine if somebody who decides to have Jason around as their sort of pet killer.
I have actually read fanfic where it's like a fanfic that's a follow up to Freddy versus Jason, where it's Jason defending a little girl from Freddy Krueger in the dream world. So it's not out of the realm. It's not even out of the fan zeitgeist. It's out there.
The problem, of course, is that those plans never work out. Like those guys who think that they can keep Michael Myers around and I don't know, parrot drop him into Costa Rica or something to kill some guy in the mountains. That's never going to happen. I mean, that is never. That plan is never going to work. I don't know what compelled them to imagine that they could control that thing. But that's a plot of an awful lot of films. So I think we've decided that Jason may have started out as a drowned child, but at this point he is just sort of a revenant demon who occupies a human body and has a curious interest in children. I mean, I think.
If he was mentally, he's still. If you go off of, they don't really you don't really get too into what's going on in Jason's head, but the brief times we have over the movies, it is safe to say that mentally he isn't too far off from being a large child.
Yeah. I mean, and again, it's very difficult though to grapple with the notion that this is a large child who is killing a lot of people, and he absolutely.
He's like Lenny gone nuts.
Right.
Well, to paraphrase another horror movie icon, a boy's
I said
best
Lenny,
friend
my
is his
son.
mother.
Yeah. No, I mean, Jamie brings up Lenny. Lenny has to be shot in the back of the head.
Well, and Jamie also brought up Frankenstein, which is the same idea, that he just accidentally, kills that little girl and whatever.
Yeah. Only in this case, he's just running around, and there's some trigger, some, in the words of that other movie, there's a twisted nerve or a ganglion gone awry, and he whenever he comes across somebody, he kills them. This is not somebody that you could suffer to keep around. I mean, and so it's very strange. I don't even completely understand if he knows that he's being killed whenever he's being killed. It's so difficult to grasp.
You have to presume that he doesn't receive death or think of death in the same terms as normal people, because it's an inconvenience to him. The universe wants Jason to go back to what Jamie said way back at the beginning. I think if Tommy Jarvis hadn't dug him up, there would have been something else that resurrected him, because this particular universe, this little corner of the horror movie universe, Jason Voorhees is the most important guy in this universe. He has to exist. So if it hadn't been that lightning bolt, if it hadn't been those grave diggers, it would have been something else.
Okay, I'll buy that.
Of course. But, or they might have not have given any reason or rationale behind it. It could have just been just another
act of God.
Yeah. But then it winds up being close to an act of God anyway, because it's lightning. But you're right, Jamie. It could have just been a lightning strike. But what I love is that there's shtick. Basically, it's just like the beginning of a Hammer film, like the Dracula Prince of Darkness, where there's shtick you got to do to bring Dracula back, involving blood and dripping on stuff and whatever. And sometimes it's accidental, and sometimes it's on purpose. But it doesn't matter, because it's almost like an incantation being done through visuals. There's going to be these different steps, and then your monster is going to come back. I agree. He's kind of like a tornado or a storm. He's once he's around, he's just around and killing things.
Well, Tom McLaughlin, the guy that directed this movie, said that he viewed Jason a lot like a pack of wolves. Like, they will kill whatever comes into their territory. And Camp Crystal Lake just happens to be his territory.
I think that's fantastic, and I totally think that's a wonderful way to look at it.
Well, it also puts him into the going mythological with it again. It also puts him as sort of being a wood god of sorts.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, absolutely. All right. Now let me talk about something that I wasn't crazy about. The humor left me cold. There's all this shtick, for instance, when the Court.
The paintball guys.
The dumbass. Okay. Well, yeah.
That was ridiculous. That guy, which is, although I have to say, you're all like, ah.
Hello?
What?
She just went out.
Did we lose? Are you still there, Jamie?
Is Drew there?
I'm here.
Oh, Drew's still there. Okay.
All right. We lost Jamie for a sec. If she was talking about the paintball guys, then we will save that for when she comes back. But in the meantime, all right, Court, the dumbass boy who's having sex with the girl in the RV and everything. All of the stuff that he's yelling while she's like, "Oh, are you in the bathroom?" Blah blah blah. You know, it's there's no laughs here. This is all really lame attempts at humor. You know, and that just I found
some of
really
it's pretty funny though. Like the all the stuff with all the grave diggers asides, that stuff could be bits out of a Universal or a Hammer. That could be Michael Ripper playing that character, even though even though it is sort of the latest incarnation of Crazy Ralph as well.
Oh, I like that guy. Yes. I'm talking about the dumb stuff with Court. I thought his humor was just really idiotic. I don't mind really stupid humor, but I just thought it was just dragging it down. So I wasn't crazy.
I don't mind it.
All right. No, fair enough. But it all gets made up for because Jason winds up flipping that whole RV. Hey, it looks like Jamie's back. Jamie, are you back on?
I'm back. All right. Sorry about that.
Oh,
I don't know what happened.
The woman behind the phone.
You were in the middle of a thought, Jamie, and we did.
Yeah, about the paintball guy.
Ah, yes. Go ahead.
I thought that was comedic relief. It was so ridiculous. I was like, oh man. And the thing is, we all know that person.
Oh, the
I
Weekend
felt like,
Warrior.
Yeah, the Weekend Warrior guys. Like, and the one little, like, I felt bad for them though, because it was like, what did they do? You know, they're just hanging out in the woods. And that's when you realize
they're yuppies, the biggest of Asian
yes,
crime.
I know, but
yeah, they deserve to die because they're corporate drones who are out doing their stupid.
They even and I'm sorry, I think the fact that they have headbands that say "dead" is brilliant.
Yeah.
Yes. No. That Jason manages to kill 3 of them with one stroke of his machete. These guys are almost not even worth killing.
He's an incredibly.
Well, you want to know why these guys were put in there, though? Is they wanted a group of people that Jason could pilfer all the tools he would need for the rest of the movie from.
Oh, you think?
I didn't think about
wow.
that. I thought it was because
yeah.
this is why you see that he's not just killing like kids who are having sex and, you know, experimenting with drugs and alcohol. He's going for anybody in the woods. He's just like going for, you know, I mean, the old man. I felt bad for the old man too. I was like, oh man, like he's just a little drunk gravedigger guy.
Well,
being
drunk in the woods
like,
is a capital sin in the.
And the virgin rule doesn't happen in here because I feel like there was at least the one camper counselor who taking care of all the kids who stays behind and then goes to sleep. Like, oh, I felt bad for her too. Like, she was just an innocent.
Well,
she didn't do anything bad.
The director actually did. The director did actually want to shy away from all that sex equals death stuff. He's religious, and he considers sex to be part of God's plan. So he didn't like that, even though he didn't. He
but
does say.
Didn't he believe that premarital sex is wrong?
Not all religious people believe that.
He considers sex. This is a quote. God, sex is part of God's plan. He didn't want to promote that kind of thinking, even though he doesn't. He is quick to say that he doesn't feel like there was any puritanical thought actually behind any of the previous Fridays. But that is part of. I think
not getting murdered by a machete is probably part of God's plan too.
Well, it's funny though, because I have a big book I have a big hardbound book that goes over and interviews all of the different cast members and filmmakers behind these movies, and they talk about this, and he said it's funny because he made the deaths more random because of his Christian values or whatever. It actually made them more shocking in a way, because suddenly it's not like, oh, if you do X, Y, or Z, you get hacked up or you get your head twisted off. It's suddenly anybody who wanders into Jason's path is just going to get annihilated.
Right.
I like this way better because James is exactly right. The virginal girl still gets it. This guy is a random killer. He doesn't care if you're having sex or not having sex. He doesn't care.
Although when he sees the motion in the ocean with the RV, you do get a pretty good tilted head comedic aside.
No, it's of interest. It is, but I mean, one of the guys he kills in the woods is a chauvinist, and we hear him against women, and he gets killed. Well, so that how do you recommend? But then the woman is not a chauvinist. She's the woman that the chauvinist guy is upset with. She also gets killed. Jason will just kill freaking anything. What I find fascinating though is that he's able to put on that hip holster. I mean, you're exactly right. He's very efficient. He's an idiot savant when it comes to killing, so that he can put on this knife holster. In theory, Jason could probably operate a machine gun if given one.
Yeah, but if you're Jason, that's kind of a downgrade.
I guess,
Why would he? He likes the hands-on touch.
He uses a harpoon gun in
That's Jason Takes Manhattan.
Okay.
Oh, they're right. That is also in part. No, you're right. That is absolutely also in part.
Speaking of, this is something that I want. So somebody please make sense of this for me. In Friday the 13th Part 3, harpoon goes through a guy's eye. The eye comes towards the screen. It's in 3D. All cool. All right. In this movie, at least in the version I saw, girl gets her head twisted off. We don't see nothing. There's really very little gore here. There's nothing on the order of even the axe to the face that you had in the first movie.
There is a pretty disturbing thing of the boat motor, the blades, and the what do you call it?
But it's mostly sound effects.
The propeller.
No.
The outboard motor.
But it's cutting up Jason's throat.
A lot of the glue actually does happen to Jason himself, now that you mention it. The grossest thing in this whole movie is when he gets up out of his grave and his body's literally rejecting maggots and worms.
That's pretty awesome.
That was pretty nasty.
But my point is this movie, I think you made this point, and I'm sorry to be repetitive, but I think you made the point, Drew, that they cut down a lot of the violence in order to earn their R rating. But that's just
they also made a lot of edits to this too, as was the norm, because the MPAA was very hard on this series because it's funny because these movies do seem so quaint now, but this was a boundary pushing film series back in the 80s. These movies made a lot of people feel really uncomfortable. So the ratings board just would hack them to pieces.
What's the Paul Verhoeven movie where Schwarzenegger is going to Mars and
that's Total Recall.
Total Recall. So Total Recall. Remember how he tears out somebody's throat using a rebar, and there's eyeballs popping and stuff like that. Way more violence in Verhoeven's movies, and certainly in RoboCop. Those movies are rated R. It just seems very strange that these movies are quite tame in comparison to RoboCop.
This movie does have somebody being... Sorry, Julia?
No, I just said RoboCop was relentless. By the way, that was our first date, was to see RoboCop.
That's true.
We do a talk, a marriage ministry talk, and as I was saying in the talk, I'm like, you can tell how much Jason was not thinking of me as girlfriend material by the fact that we went to RoboCop.
Or maybe he just thought you were that awesome.
You were just that awesome.
Yeah,
that's
right.
The truth.
I'm with you, Jason. I think that's a perfectly acceptable date. But says the guy that proposed to the Wolfman.
Right? RoboCop was a year after this movie. And I'm saying RoboCop leaves this movie in the dust as far as just pure gore, so it's bizarre.
Again, the director, McLaughlin, his favorite horror films are Hammer and Universal style, what he calls the Gothics. So there was that's partly a stylistic choice. And again, they were trying to make sure that they didn't, at this point, trying to make sure they didn't have as much trouble with the ratings board. It didn't actually end up happening. The ratings board still ended up hacking this to pieces. So, it didn't. Yeah. And it is safe to say, as they just pointed out, somebody does get twisted around into essentially a human donut. It's not like this movie does not have some grisly things in it.
No, good point. That is a good point. So anyway, that's it is funny to compare this film with the earlier Friday the 13th and see how it is a tamer, more adventure-y kind of Friday the 13th film. We should go to final thoughts and endorsements. So, and this is a place for you to touch on anything that we might have missed, because, obviously we could talk for a really long time on Friday the 13th. But, okay, Drew, final thoughts, Jason Lives.
Well, something that we didn't go, and I have to say this because I bring it up every time I talk about this. This movie has one of my favorite images in any horror film ever. There is the part where the camp counselor puts the little girl back to bed. She starts walking. You have the succession of windows, and Jason is just out there mirroring her. It is so creepy.
She doesn't see him.
She doesn't see him, but he sees her, and they are walking together, and it is so simple. It is so creepy. It is so effective. I love that. And if nothing else alone, that is a reason to watch this movie. I have enjoyed the hell out of talking out of this. I consider this movie to be it's definitely one of my favorite of the Fridays. It might be my favorite. I don't know. That's a tough one. But this is a great example of a fun horror film from the second golden age of horror films. I hope if you've never watched a Friday the 13th, please dig into the series and watch this. I hope we can actually follow up and maybe do some more next time we have a Friday the 13th on the calendar, because I would love to dig into more of these. And if you've enjoyed hearing me nerd out about this, please on the Facebook group, let us know that you'd like to hear about other Friday the 13th movies.
Outstanding. Let's see. Is it Julia next or Jamie next?
Yeah, you and me.
Julia. Okay, Julia. Final thoughts, Jason Lives.
So yeah, I think it's not as bad as I thought it was going to be. I actually, like I said, enjoyed some of it. I think that yes, we didn't really talk about the musical score that much.
You're right. I'm sorry.
That's okay. But I just wanted to repeat what I said before, which is that having the silly little slapsticky music while the different, especially the paintball guys, but whenever stuff like that was going on, or the gravedigger guy, that just annoyed the crap out of me. But having the kids there makes it super suspenseful. You're just like, oh my! I found myself obsessed with the idea that these kids were going to be left alone in the camp once all the adults were dead. I was like, these poor kids. Not only are they having this horrible thing, but they're not going to have any adults to help them, get out of there. But anyway, so fortunately there is at least the two. And then, but there's some interesting stuff. I think Jason's certainly a very interesting monster. I have to agree with you on that, Drew. And
well, thank you.
Yeah. And it's just I don't know. I haven't seen enough of them to say whether it's one of the better ones, but I don't think it's a waste of your time to watch it, for sure.
Outstanding. Jamie, what are your thoughts?
I like this movie. Out of the ones I've seen so far, I like to do this with James. Apparently, watch them out of sequence. So I'm excited to see the one before this and get a little Corey action, because I'm curious. Is this Corey Feldman?
We actually have to go two back to get the Corey.
There's so many disturbing things about the idea of getting a little Corey action, especially given that he's a child.
When I say getting Corey action, I don't mean it in a sexual way. I guess it sounds like that's not what I meant. I'm saying you get a little visit, oh, okay. Corey Feldman, blast from the past. But
So okay, thank you.
I'd recommend. I'd say go watch it. Go watch it if you haven't seen it. It's worth a revisit, and you can make your own, thoughts about it. But it's a pretty good movie. It was entertaining enough, and not so gross, yet pretty violent. So I agree with you, Julia. The lack of gore kind of made it a little easier for me to watch and then go to bed. So,
Yeah.
But yeah, except I have had a lot of thoughts about that poor dad. Dad broke his back. So that's a pretty crazy scene. It kind of reminded me of The Exorcist when she, in the one after, what's it called? When she does the little crab walk down the stairs, and she looks like, that's, I was trying to, because I was trying to, the mechanics of that, like, I had to actually ask, I turned and asked Drew, I was like, what just happened to him? Like, I felt like I blinked and I didn't understand. I was like, and she's like, he broke his back. I was like, I don't know technically if that means he's dead or not, because I think you can survive a broken back, but
no, that was not the broken back. He was like completely folded over and broken.
For his sake, I hope he didn't survive that.
Yeah, right.
Who knows? But it seems unlikely. It's pretty extreme. But yeah. Well, so thank you. My final thoughts. This is a really great movie to meet Jason Voorhees in. And I'm not a huge Friday the 13th fan, but I really love the world of Friday the 13th. I love this sort of unstoppable killer in the woods. It is. I think Drew's right. I think it's classic campfire tale stuff. So this is a really good one. As far as that goes, I wish it were less clean. I wish it were less goreless. I wish it were grimier and grungier, and and all the 80s fashions are kind of, it's not to my taste. Even though, of course, this is like right in line with my generation. I mean, these are my just like. But I like the 70s-ish feel of the first movie a lot more. But still.
Well, that's because you have it backwards. The 80s is the way to go, man. 80s.
No, I'm with you. But I was actually a teenager in the 80s, so I don't know. I kind of
maybe it's because I was a little kid. I don't know. Maybe that's the difference. Maybe that's the important difference there.
Julia and I met the year that this movie came out, astonishingly. So there you go. All right, let's come around for endorsements and see what people are enjoying or watching or recommending or what have you. Drew, anything to lay down for us this week?
I am having another nerd out for something completely different. I have been fallen madly and deeply in love with The Flash, which just cropped up on Netflix.
Flash with
I was not, huh?
Flash.
Oh,
Flash.
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 Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were talking
What
about
did
the
you
mermaid.
think I said?
Splash.
Flash. No.
That's
Tom Hanks. Barry Allen.
Hannah and Tom Hanks.
Yeah.
Never mind.
The
Go ahead.
fastest man alive. I was not a fan of Arrow. I tried watching it. I could not get into it. It seemed like they had just essentially done a Batman show and painted over what they couldn't get the rights to the Batman, so they just got Green Arrow and did a Batman show with the Green Arrow names on it. However, The Flash is awesome pretty much from frame one. It really does capture the boundless imagination and optimism. Really important thing here, the optimism of superhero comics, better than just about any of the other live action superhero adaptations I've seen lately. It's just so much fun. And it's just a shame to me that this guy is not going to be the Flash in the Justice League movie, because I can't imagine them finding somebody that makes for as likable of a Barry Allen as the guy that's on the show. I'm about midway through the season. I can't wait to see the rest of it. They keep teasing Gorilla Grodd, who is one of my favorite weird DC villains. It's just been, like I said, just so much fun.
Very cool. Julia, do you have anything to endorse for us this week?
Well, Jason and I have gotten into watching a show that's called Crazy Ex-Girlfriend.
Yes.
And it's on the CW, and it's hilarious. It's so good. It's like a weird musical comedy type of, like, where they'll suddenly break into song, randomly. And but it's just bizarre. I mean, it's so weird and funny. I don't know. I really enjoy it. I kind of identify a little bit too much, although this chick is a lot younger than I am, and I'm not single. But I identify too much with, because she's a lawyer and she's kind of crazy, and I kind of relate to the crazy parts of her a little bit. So I think that might be why I enjoy it so much. But I know Jason likes it as well, and that may be because he's married to me.
I like crazy lawyers.
Yeah, I guess so. But anyways, but it's a really, really, really fun show. If you haven't gotten a chance to check it out, you should.
Oh, it's so good. I hope lots of people watch it because, Rachel Bloom is the comedian who's creatively behind it, and she plays Rebecca Bunch, a woman who shares her initials, but it is so good. It's like the best show. It's the old TV Guide thing, the best show that nobody's watching. It is really a neat surprise. Jamie, what about you? What you got going on?
Well, I'd like to endorse Final Girls. It was actually really good. It's a movie that came out in 2015. When Drew brought it home the other night, I was surprised that it was already out on DVD. And it's the perfect complement to the Friday the 13th series, and you can really see how Jason Voorhees himself and the franchise really affected pop culture in a way. This movie's being made 30 years after the initial movies came out, and but it's just, I don't know, it's kind of a heartwarming story, even though it's a slasher movie. And that's, not something you get.
The movie is essentially the Purple Rose of Cairo meets Friday the 13th.
Yeah, you mentioned that. That's right. That's what you called it. Yeah.
I actually, oddly enough, Jamie liked it better than me because it's PG-13, and I don't think you can do a proper Friday the 13th pastiche if it's not rated R.
Julia,
but it is really good. That's not me. I would also double endorse it. It is still a really good film and totally worth watching if you're a fan of Friday the 13th.
And I just felt like, I don't know, there was a really good female cast as well, and the male characters were great too. There wasn't as many, but some of the Bumper from Pitch Perfect is in it. We had a bumper double feature, you're calling it, because we saw Pitch Perfect 2, which I guess I could kind of endorse if you need like a cheesy comedy. But yeah, I agree with Drew. That Sound Machine was better. So, but anyways, back to Final Girls. Yeah, it's with one of the girls from one of the lead girls. I can't pronounce her name for the life of me. Aisa Yamber, I don't know, but she's from Coven, not from the American Horror Story. She's in it, and it's got one of my favorite from Arrested Development, and so it's pretty good cast. So, listen, go check it out.
Jason, I do want to say that we said earlier that we would say what the movie was that I don't endorse.
Yeah,
I did not. I have to say, and I'm sure people are going to hate me for this, and I apologize in advance. But I did not enjoy Death Proof, Quentin Tarantino's Death Proof. I felt like that film just did not. I didn't. No.
It didn't resonate.
There were some things that I really liked. Some things I really liked, but boy, it drags on. It's suspenseful in the wrong way, where I'm just like, oh my God, when's something going to happen? And then stuff happens, and it's like very dramatic. But then like another 20 minutes where nothing will happen. I don't know. I just didn't care for it, and we watched it right before this movie, so that might have helped this movie that I didn't care for.
I think there's I think there's something happening to my brain lately where I'm enjoying movies more where less happens. You know, I really liked Death Proof, and I enjoyed the fact that the first hour is basically just all talk before anything interesting happens.
Well, and then the second hour is all talking about doing the stunt that they're going to do on the car. I don't know. I just, yeah. And I love Quentin Tarantino. I love Austin. I mean, that's the other thing is that movie is filmed in Austin. So
it takes a lot for you to not like that movie.
Yeah.
I think out of that double feature, Planet Terror is the more entertaining of the two.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I'm not there. I really did like Death Proof. I was a big.
No, you're not the only one. I know other people feel that way.
It is a shock that it took me something on the order of 9 years to get around to watching it, but there you go. Those things happen. Okay, my endorsements are twofold. Our sponsor for this month is the Laguna Riviera Resort in Laguna Beach, which was built in 1948, and I stayed at recently because I've been, as I mentioned, researching demon hunting in Laguna Beach, and they are absolutely fantastic. You should check it out because you can wake up looking at the ocean every morning, and it's just a part of sort of old Hollywood getaways. My other endorsement this week is Depraved Heart, the new novel by Patricia Cornwell. I am a huge fan of Patricia Cornwell, and the way I like to explain it to people, I really look forward to being disappointed by every Patricia Cornwell novel, and I will never avoid one. I always read them. I always feel like there's not enough there. Like they go on for like 600 pages and then you're done, and you're like, what? There should be more. They are unlike any other novel series I've ever read because the Kay Scarpetta novels are, at this point, they're about a medical examiner who hunts serial killers. But at this point, these books are really just soap operas where once a year you get another 500 or 600 pages that just checks in with the characters. You go through a lot of business with them, a lot of conversations, and then it's over, and then you have to wait another year for the next installment. Sometimes major plot points just don't even end. They just don't even wrap them up. They're like, you know what? We're going to have another book next year, so we'll catch up with you then. And this is yet another one of those. I love them. This is the weirdest endorsement I've ever done because I'm basically saying, in a sense, these are strange books that defy your expectations of what a serial killer novel is supposed to be, and yet I'm always going to get the next one. I'm never going to give up on Kay Scarpetta. So that's my latest. Depraved Heart. You got to read that.
Can I tack on one more endorsement because I feel like I need to do this week?
Yeah.
I want to endorse Mile High Comics in Jason and Julia's stomping grounds of Denver, Colorado. Jamie and I visited right before we drove back from Denver, and they actually ended up purchasing. They have more or less the entire Halloween Man library, and I imagine if you were looking for any comic book, they probably have it because this is the biggest comic book store I have ever had. They have a giant Lego Sentinel from X-Men, for crying out loud. I was just so impressed with the store, and the staff seemed super nice. The manager gave us a tour of the store. It was just awesome, and I feel like I needed to give them a shout-out. And also, if you're in the Colorado area, you could go in there and buy Halloween Man because they now have more Halloween Man than probably any analog comic book store in the nation because they more or less have the entire library now. So Mile High Comics, awesome place. Can't wait to get back up there so I can visit it again.
Great.
Very cool. All right, and that wraps up our discussion for the week of Friday the 13th of Jason Lives, Friday the 13th, Part 6, the best movie of 1986 to feature Jason Voorhees. Actually, a really fantastic Friday the 13th movie, and I'm so happy that we had a chance to talk about it. This was very, very fun. It makes me want to go watch a whole bunch more of these things. So lucky
for you, there are still a lot of them.
Yeah, no, for sure. So, yes, thank you very, very much. I'm so glad that you guys were on. Jamie, thank you. Julia, Drew, everybody. Hey, check us out on the Facebook page. Leave reviews for us on iTunes. That helps people find the show. If you have something you want to discuss, if you are offended by something I said, I hope you were, because that brings people to the Facebook page. I totally want to engage. We all will engage and have long and ultimately troublesome conversations on the Facebook page. So thank you very much. Have a fantastic Friday the 13th. Be extremely careful, and we'll talk to you.
Don't go camping. Don't smoke pot.
Don't walk under any ladders.
Yeah, none of that.
Don't be in an RV. Don't listen to Alice Cooper.
No, especially.
Don't have sex. Oh wait, you can have sex.
No, that's
just don't be a teenager.
All right. So long, everybody. Thank you very, very